Beneath the marble pillars of Athens, where philosophers debated virtue and sculptors carved gods from stone, there pulsed a darker rhythm, one of unrestrained desire, ritual pleasure, and shocking intimacy. Ancient Greece, the birthplace of democracy and philosophy, was also a civilization consumed by lust and obsession. What we now whisper in secrecy, they celebrated openly, in temples, feasts, and sacred rites that blurred the line between devotion and debauchery. Welcome to the hidden world behind the glory of Olympus, a world both mesmerizing and unsettling. Before we begin, remember to like, subscribe, and stay till the end. In the flickering torchlight of an Athenian night, bodies moved like shadows beneath the open sky. Drunken laughter echoed through courtyards as men reclined on couches, draped in silk, cups overflowing with wine. This was the symposium, the heart of Greek indulgence, where ideas met intoxication and philosophy mingled with flesh. Here, politics and poetry shared space with passion and pleasure. Young men were adored, musicians entertained, and the night dissolved into the haze of erotic abandon. To the Greeks, beauty was divine, and to worship it was not sin, but sacred duty. The god Eros, child of chaos, was said to stir the hearts of gods and mortals alike. In Athens, he was more than myth, he was the pulse of daily life. Erotic love was seen as a path to truth, a reflection of the soul's perfection. Yet this pursuit often took unsettling turns. Philosophers like Plato romanticized love between men as a noble mentorship, while in practice, older men sought out youths for carnal companionship. What began as an ideal became indulgence, blurring virtue with desire in ways that modern minds still struggle to reconcile. In Sparta, love was stripped of romance and forged into discipline. Warriors were encouraged to bond through intimacy, not for pleasure, but for unity in battle. Young soldiers were paired with older mentors who guided them in war and passion alike. To the Spartans, this was not shameful, it was patriotic. They believed shared desire made their army undefeatable. But behind that ideology lay quiet suffering. The young, often voiceless, molded into weapons of both flesh and will. What was seen as strength was also a slow erasure of innocence. Then came the hetairai, the courtesans who redefined femininity in a world where women were otherwise silenced. Unlike wives, these women were educated, free, and desired. They hosted gatherings where wit was as valued as beauty, and conversation could seduce more powerfully than touch. Aspasia, the famed lover of Pericles, wielded influence that rivaled statesmen, shaping Athenian thought through her intellect and allure. But for every Aspasia, countless others were discarded, their worth measured in the fleeting fascination of men. Desire raised them, and just as easily destroyed them. Deep in the sanctuaries of Eleusis and Corinth, lust was woven into worship. Here, sex was a form of devotion, an offering to gods who ruled both fertility and fate. Priestesses of Aphrodite were said to give themselves in sacred unions, believing pleasure itself bridged the mortal and divine. Yet historians debate whether these rites were holy or exploited, a confusion that still lingers. Beneath the incense and hymns lay something raw and human, a desperate need to touch eternity through the ecstasy of the body. The city of Corinth earned infamy across Greece for what travelers called Corinthian luxury. It wasn't gold or art that gave it that name, it was its women. The temple of Aphrodite on Acrocorinth was said to house 1,000 priestesses, offering themselves in ritual acts of love. Ships from across the Aegean brought offerings, eager to taste the city's divine pleasures. Whether myth or truth, Corinth became a symbol of erotic excess, a place where the sacred and the profane embraced without shame, under the watchful eyes of the goddess of love. In ancient myths, even the gods reflected the desires of their worshippers. Zeus transformed into bulls, swans, and showers of gold to seduce mortals. Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy, led frenzied rites where followers, the Maenads, tore through forests in drunken passion, their eyes wild, their bodies smeared with blood and wine. These stories were not cautionary. They were celebrations of chaos, passion, and power. The Greeks saw in their gods the reflection of their own impulses, beauty, lust, madness, and the eternal hunger for meaning through pleasure. But beneath the opulence and open desire lay darker tales. Young slaves, both male and female, were traded like currency, their bodies used in homes and brothels alike. The law turned away, seeing them not as humans, but as property. Even the educated philosophers, who spoke of virtue and reason, often justified such cruelty as part of nature's order. Behind the shining marble facades, silent agony lingered. The brilliance of Greece was built not just on wisdom, but on the suffering of those who could never speak their truth. In Athens, marriage was less about love and more about legacy. Wives were chosen for lineage, not desire, and lived lives confined to the home. Men sought affection elsewhere, in courtesans, in slaves, or in younger companions. For many women, the only way to escape silence was through the oldest form of rebellion, their own bodies. Some turned to prostitution for survival, others to the temple, where sex could mean salvation. But in either path, their voices were never truly heard. Theirs was a world ruled by desire, yet deaf to its pain. Erotic art adorned the walls of villas and pottery alike. Scenes of orgies, seduction, and forbidden love were not hidden. They were celebrated. To the Greeks, the human form was the pinnacle of creation. Painters and sculptors captured every curve and muscle with divine precision, transforming the body into a symbol of perfection. Yet behind those graceful forms lay stories untold, the pleasure, the shame, the longing that transcended centuries. What the chisel could not carve, the poets whispered, verses of desire that still haunt the echoes of antiquity. One of the most whispered practices was pederasty, a relationship between an older man and a youth, often idealized as mentorship but steeped in intimacy. Philosophers claimed it nurtured virtue, teaching young men to seek beauty of both body and soul. Yet modern eyes see the imbalance, power disguised as affection, consent blurred by tradition. The Greeks rationalized desire as education, masking domination as devotion. Their world, for all its brilliance, teetered on the fragile edge between enlightenment and exploitation. The god Dionysus, ever the seducer, was worshipped through wild festivals known as the Dionysia. Wine flowed endlessly, masks hid faces, and every social rule collapsed beneath the rhythm of the drums. In this frenzy, peasants danced with nobles, men embraced men, and women screamed the names of gods into the night. It was liberation and madness entwined. For a brief moment, the Greeks touched something primal, freedom unbound by morality. But when dawn came, only silence remained, and the sobering question, had they glimpsed the divine or only their own darkness? On the island of Lesbos, the poet Sappho sang of love between women, tender, aching, eternal. Her verses captured a beauty rarely spoken in her time, the quiet power of feminine desire. She wrote of longing that transcended gender, of touch as language, of souls drawn together beyond the limits of law or religion. While history reduced her name to an identity, her poetry remains one of humanity's purest testaments to love in all its forms. Amidst a world ruled by men, Sappho's voice burned softly, but forever. The Greeks did not separate the erotic from the divine. In their temples, beauty itself was worshipped. Statues of gods stood naked, flawless, eternal, not as sin, but as sacred truth. The body was the language of the gods, the medium through which humanity reached toward immortality. Yet for all their acceptance of flesh, the Greeks feared corruption, the idea that passion, uncontrolled, could unravel the soul. It was a paradox they never resolved, that desire could both elevate and destroy, that love could be both sacred fire and consuming flame. In the shadow of the Acropolis, a quiet ritual took place each spring, the festival of Adonis. Women gathered to mourn the death of the youthful god, planting gardens that would bloom and wither within days. As the petals fell, their grief turned to ecstasy. Lament became song, and tears mingled with laughter. To outsiders, it seemed madness. But to the Greeks, this cycle mirrored life itself: desire, loss, rebirth. Even in mourning, they found seduction. The boundaries between sorrow and pleasure dissolved like perfume in the evening air, leaving behind only the scent of mortality. The oracle of Delphi, veiled in vapors, spoke of divine desire through trembling lips. The Pythia's trances were said to be induced by the breath of Apollo himself, but whispers said the visions came from something deeper, something human. Her ecstasies were not only spiritual, they were physical, consuming her body as much as her mind. She was both prophet and prisoner of the god she served. Each prophecy was a birth of agony and rapture intertwined, a sacred violation, painted in the language of destiny. The theater, too, was a place of seduction. The plays of Euripides and Aristophanes blurred the line between comedy and lust, tragedy and temptation. On stage, gods seduced mortals, mortals defied gods, and the audience cheered with knowing smiles. Masks exaggerated desire, wide eyes, parted lips, eternal hunger carved into plaster. Art became confession. Beneath the laughter, there was understanding, that to be human was to crave, to sin, to be consumed by longing. In their stories, the Greeks laid bare their own hearts, shameless, fragile, divine. Some historians speak of the Thyasos, secret gatherings devoted to the god Dionysus, where worshippers abandoned all restraint. Men and women alike drank deep from goblets, shedding clothes and inhibitions beneath moonlit forests. They believed that only through surrender, to wine, to music, to each other, could they glimpse eternity. Yet these rites often ended in chaos. When the veil between divine and mortal tore too thin, madness spilled through. The same hands that caressed could also kill. Passion and violence were twins, bound by the same heartbeat. There was, too, the cruel irony of beauty. In a world that worshipped perfection, those who did not fit the mold were hidden or mocked. Desire became a currency of power, and power demanded youth, symmetry, allure. As the statues gleamed under sun, countless unseen souls faded in the dark. The Greeks taught that beauty led to truth, but whose truth was it, when so many were denied the right to be seen? Their art celebrated the ideal body, but their society punished the imperfect one. Love was eternal, but not for all. In the heart of Athens, beneath the Parthenon's shadow, prostitution flourished openly. Brothels lined the streets, their doors marked with crude carvings of desire. Men wandered in after nights of debate and politics, seeking solace in fleeting touch. The madams were shrewd, the girls young, the air thick with oil lamps and whispers. It was here that the illusion of equality between passion and profit dissolved. Every coin paid was a reminder that even love had a price. And in Greece, pleasure was not only divine, but commercial. The Romans would later adopt and exaggerate these customs, turning Greek sensuality into spectacle. But in its origin, the Greek vision of eros was intimate, almost philosophical. They believed that desire revealed the nature of the soul. Every embrace, every forbidden glance, was a dialogue between body and spirit. It was not lust alone, it was inquiry, worship, self-discovery. Yet as centuries passed, what began as reverence decayed into ritual. The sacred act became indulgence, and the gods who once smiled upon it turned away in silence. The rise of Stoicism tried to smother the flames. Philosophers like Zeno preached restraint, calling desire a disease of the mind. The pursuit of pleasure, they said, enslaved the soul. Yet even as they spoke of purity, their hearts remembered the songs of Dionysus. Desire was not so easily buried. The more it was condemned, the more it grew, secret, forbidden, alive in the dark corners of temples and hearts. The Greeks had tasted freedom too sweet to forget, and though they spoke of reason, they still dreamed of ecstasy. For women, the paradox was cruelest. They were revered as symbols of fertility, yet denied power over their own bodies. The same men who worshipped Aphrodite feared the women who resembled her most. Myths warned of seductresses like Medea and Helen, blaming them for wars and ruin. Desire, when wielded by women, became dangerous. Yet in this fear lay confession, that men understood their weakness before beauty. In the end, Greek society built temples to women they could not control and laws to restrain those they could. The festivals of Aphrodite, once radiant with hymns and roses, grew decadent. Offerings of flowers turned to flesh. Devotion gave way to indulgence. The goddess of love watched as mortals twisted her worship into hunger. Her name was whispered not with reverence, but desire. Statues of her adorned every city, her smile carved eternal, her eyes distant, as if mourning what she had inspired. The Greeks who once loved beauty for beauty's sake had begun to devour it. In their search for divine pleasure, they had found only the mirror of their own corruption. The fall of Greece brought no end to its desires, only transformation. When Rome conquered, it carried Greek passion like a torch, spreading it across the empire. The words, the art, the ideals of Eros survived, reshaped, reimagined, but never extinguished. In secret manuscripts and fading frescoes, the echoes of those ancient nights still linger. Even centuries later, the Renaissance would revive their sensual gods, painting them anew in oils and gold. The body, once worshipped in marble, lived again on canvas, immortal, desirable, and damned. But perhaps the true legacy of Greek passion lies not in its excess, but in its honesty. They did not hide from desire. They faced it, celebrated it, dissected it, even feared it, but never denied its power. In a world that often separates purity from pleasure, the Greeks dared to see both in the same light. Their sins and splendor coexist in our own modern struggles with intimacy, morality, and freedom. Their world may have crumbled to dust, but their understanding of desire still beats within us. Imagine standing among the ruins of Delphi at dusk, the stones still warm from the sun. The air is heavy with silence, yet something stirs, an echo of laughter, a whisper of song. These were not just stones, they were witnesses. To love, to madness, to the divine within the human. Every broken column holds memory of worship, of surrender, of yearning that defied the centuries. You can almost feel it beneath your fingertips, the pulse of Eros, ancient and eternal, waiting for the next generation to remember. The Greeks gave the world many gifts: democracy, philosophy, art, but perhaps their most haunting bequest is this: the courage to desire, to love deeply, to sin beautifully, to live knowing that pleasure and pain are twins born of the same heart. Their world was flawed, yes, but alive, pulsing with emotion we still recognize. Their tales remind us that even in our most civilized moments, we are still creatures of longing. And perhaps that is what makes us human, the unending hunger for connection, for beauty, for more. So, when we speak of ancient Greece, let us remember not only the marble and myth, but the passion that burned beneath it all. Their gods were not distant. They were reflections of ourselves, imperfect, desiring, divine. History may judge their practices as bizarre, even immoral, but within them lies a truth untouched by time, that love, in all its forms, defines civilization. If this story stirred you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next descent into the forgotten worlds of history's hidden passions. Until then, stay curious, and remember, even marble bleeds.